You know, we think of the universe as this vast, beautiful, majestic place, and it is, but it's also home to some of the most bizarre, terrifying, and just downright impossible worlds you can imagine. So today, let's take a tour of those cosmic nightmares. Forget about aliens for a second. The planets themselves, they're the real monsters out there. So the real question is, what horrors are actually lurking in that endless dark between the stars? Our first stop is TRES 2b, and this place is the darkest exoplanet we've ever found. Seriously, this gas giant reflects less than 1% of the light that hits it. That's darker than a lump of coal. But here's the twist. It's not cold. It's scorching hot. We're talking over 1,700 degrees Fahrenheit. So if you could actually see it, it wouldn't be some black sphere. No, it'd be this giant, burning ember just hanging in the void, putting off this faint, sinister red glow. Okay, now we're entering our first gallery of horrors. Worlds where the weather isn't just, bad, it's literally apocalyptic. So let's kick things off with HD 8066b. People call it the Whiplash planet for a truly terrifying reason. You see, while we here on Earth enjoy a nice, stable, nearly circular orbit, this planet's path is this long, stretched-out ellipse. It spends most of its time way out in the freezing cold darkness before it takes this horrifying dive straight toward its star. And during that dive, things get violent. In just 6 hours, as it slingshots around its sun, the temperature on the side facing the star just skyrockets to over 2,000 degrees Fahrenheit. This sudden flash frying just blasts the planet with more than 1,000 times the energy Earth gets from our sun. The atmosphere just can't handle that sudden heat, so it erupts. Scientists call them shockwave storms, with winds blasting from that superheated hot zone at an incredible 11,000 miles per hour. And then, just as quickly as it started, it's flung right back out into the cold to freeze all over again. But believe it or not, that's not even the record holder. Over on a planet called WASP 127b, we've clocked the fastest jet stream ever measured. Winds are screaming around its equator at up to 20,500 miles per hour. That's fast enough to circle our entire planet in less than an hour, and it's nearly 6 times faster than the planet itself is rotating. Just wild. All right, for our final exhibit in this weather gallery, we've got a planet that seems to just break the laws of physics. Welcome to Gliese 436b, home to a substance that really shouldn't exist. Hot ice. The surface is over 800 degrees Fahrenheit, hot enough to melt lead, but the gravitational pressure is so immense, so utterly crushing, that it forces water molecules to pack together into a solid state, even while they're burning hot. And that's not its only problem. Oh no, the planet is literally being eaten alive by its own star. The star's radiation is blasting away its atmosphere, creating this colossal tail of hydrogen gas stretching over 8 million miles long. The theory is that some hidden, massive planet knocked it into this deadly orbit ages ago, and now it's just left there to slowly evaporate into nothing. Next up on the tour, we're visiting worlds that weren't just born, they were forged in violence. These are planets with catastrophic pasts and, frankly, even grimmer futures. I want you to meet the planets orbiting the pulsar PSR B1257+12. Astronomers have a nickname for them, the zombie planets. And for good reason. You see, they orbit a star named Lich, which is literally the corpse of a dead star. It's a pulsar, a rapidly spinning neutron star that rotates 160 times every single second, constantly bathing these worlds in deadly radiation. Imagine a sky flashing like a violent strobe light forever. So how in the world do you get a zombie planet? Well, it's a pretty gruesome recipe. You start with 2 dead stars, white dwarfs, locked in a death spiral. Eventually, they collide and merge in this incredibly violent event, leaving behind that spinning corpse, the pulsar. And from the leftover debris, the rubble of that cosmic catastrophe, new, undead worlds are born. Now, let's look at a different kind of violent history. Over at WASP 17b, the planet is orbiting backwards. Yeah, the star spins one way and the planet goes the other. This was the very first retrograde orbit ever discovered, and it completely shocked astronomers. It tells us this world had a chaotic past, probably thrown into this backward loop after a near collision with another giant planet. And the strangeness does not stop there. WASP 17b is a true monster. It's almost twice as wide as Jupiter, but only has half the mass, which makes it incredibly puffy. Its density is so low it would literally float on water like a giant beach ball. And just recently, the James Webb Telescope found something else in its atmosphere, clouds made of tiny quartz crystals. Yeah. And for our final gallery, we're entering the realm of the truly unsettling. These aren't just strange planets. These are ghosts in the machine, and they challenge our very idea of what's real and what isn't. This is the bizarre story of Fomalhaut b. Back in 2008, it was this historic moment, one of the first exoplanets ever photographed directly. A huge deal. But then it started acting weird. It wasn't glowing with heat like a planet should, and it seemed to be drifting off course. By 2014, it had completely vanished. The dot of light was just gone. The ghost was finally busted in 2020. Turns out it was never a planet at all, but a massive expanding dust cloud from a collision between two huge asteroids. So we've seen a planet turn out to be a complete illusion. But that brings up an even weirder question. If a planet can just vanish, what about one that was maybe never there to begin with? This brings us to the ultimate ghost, HD 188753 AB. It was reported as a gas giant bigger than Jupiter, found in a tight triple-star system. Now the problem, according to everything we know about how planets form, there just wasn't enough room or enough material for a gas giant to grow there. The two companion stars would have cut off the supply line. This planet simply shouldn't exist. But here's where the story gets even stranger. After its discovery was announced in 2005, another team of astronomers went looking for it in 2007 with more precise instruments. And they found absolutely nothing. Its existence is still a completely unsolved mystery. Is it real, or was it just a ghost in the data all along? We still don't know. So after this whole tour of cosmic terrors, you might be asking yourself, okay, so what? Why do these monster planets even matter? Well, they're a lot more than just cosmic curiosities. What these monsters teach us is actually profound. You see, each one is a puzzle that completely challenges our basic models of how solar systems are supposed to form and evolve. They reveal these incredibly violent and chaotic histories that are possible out there. Really, they show us that the cosmos is far stranger, more creative, and more terrifying than we ever imagined. Think about it. We found all of these bizarre, impossible worlds by looking at these tiny, flickering specks of light hundreds of light years away. It really makes you wonder, what else is waiting for us out there in the total darkness? You know, when we think about space, we usually picture these beautiful, swirling nebulas or stars that could give rise to life. But the universe, it also hides some places that are straight out of a nightmare. So today, we're going to take a tour of the most bizarre and, frankly, terrifying planets we've ever found. So let's start with this question. What if darkness never came? Imagine standing on a world where one sun sets, only to be immediately replaced by a second sun, and then a third. A world where there is no real night? Well, that's the strange reality that's been proposed for a planet called HD 188753A. This place is locked in a seriously strange cosmic dance. You've got a main star, kind of like our own sun, but then you also have two smaller stars that are orbiting each other while they also orbit the main one. If you could actually stand there, your shadow would literally split into three. This thing, this huge gas giant, whips around its main star in just 3.5 days. And that's what really baffled scientists, because there just shouldn't have been enough room or material to form a planet like that in such a crowded system. But that bizarre solar system, that's just our warm-up. Our first real stop on this tour is a category of planets defined by weather so hellish, the forecast is just constant, unending violence. Meet HD 8066b. They call it the Whiplash planet, and for good reason. See, most planets travel in a nice, predictable circle. Not this one. For about 100 days, it drifts way, way out from its sun, just floating in the freezing cold darkness of deep space. But then, it starts this terrifying dive. In just 20 hours, it blasts towards its star, swings around it at a dangerously close distance, and then slingshots itself right back out into the void. It's less of an orbit and more like a recurring near-suicide mission. And the consequence of that dive is, well, it's extreme. During that super close flyby, the temperature on the side facing the star skyrockets to over 2,000 degrees Fahrenheit in just 6 hours. This sudden flash frying triggers these massive shockwave storms, with winds erupting at over 11,000 miles per hour. But believe it or not, even that isn't the record holder. On a planet called WASP 127b, the fastest winds ever measured are screaming around the equator at a mind-boggling 20,500 miles per hour. I mean, that's fast enough to circle the entire Earth in well under an hour. To put that in perspective, the fastest winds in our own solar system, on Neptune, would feel like a gentle breeze there. Some of these worlds are just unimaginably hot. Take Kelt 9b. Temperatures there reach over 7,700 degrees Fahrenheit. It's so hot, its atmosphere is literally being boiled off into space. Its own star is stripping away about 10 million tons of material every single second, creating this massive tail of gas, making the planet look just like a comet. Okay, so from planets with insane weather, we now move on to worlds that seem to break the fundamental rules of physics as we know them. This is WASP-17b. Now, in just about every system we've ever seen, the planets orbit in the same direction that their star is spinning. It's like a basic rule of how solar systems form. But WASP-17b, it goes backwards. This retrograde orbit was a complete shock to scientists. It probably means it had an incredibly violent past. Maybe it got thrown onto this bizarre path after a near collision with another planet. And that's not even the only weird thing about it. WSP-17b is almost twice as wide as Jupiter, making it one of the largest planets we've ever found. But get this, it only has half of Jupiter's mass. It is so incredibly puffy and low density that if you could find a bathtub big enough for it, it would float like a giant beach ball. And to top it all off, the James Webb Telescope recently found that its clouds are made of tiny quartz crystals. Okay, get ready for a true paradox. On the planet Gliese 436b, scientists think its interior is made of something called hot ice. But wait, how can something be solid ice and at the same time be burning hot? The answer is just one word: pressure. The gravity on this planet is so incredibly crushing that it physically squeezes water molecules together into a solid crystal structure. So this immense pressure actually overcomes the intense heat, forcing the water to stay solid even as it's burning at over 800 degrees Fahrenheit. It's wild. And then there's TRES 2b. This is the darkest exoplanet ever discovered. We're talking pitch black. It reflects less than 1% of the light that hits it, which actually makes it darker than a lump of coal. We don't know exactly why, but it's so hot it probably can't form the kind of reflective clouds we're used to. So instead, it just absorbs all that light and emits this faint, dim red glow, like a giant burning ember just floating in the void. So, from the rule breakers, we now descend into our final and I think most unsettling category: the ghosts, the zombies, and the cosmic phantoms of the universe. Imagine looking up at your sun. But instead of a steady, warm light, you see this violent strobe, flashing 160 times every single second. That is the view from the so-called zombie planets, orbiting a thing called PSR B1257+12. Their sun is actually a pulsar, a rapidly spinning dead star that's just blasting them with constant, deadly radiation. These planets are probably zombies themselves, having somehow formed from the debris of a stellar catastrophe. Now here's an incredible story of a planet that was eaten alive and survived. KOI 55b was just orbiting its star like normal, but then the star swelled up into a red giant and swallowed it whole. I mean, the immense heat and pressure should have completely destroyed it, but somehow the planet's core made it through. And today, all that's left is this burnt, rocky remnant, scorching hot at over 12,000 degrees. This next one is a genuine cosmic ghost story. Back in 2008, astronomers were thrilled to take a direct photograph of a planet named Fomalhaut b. It was a huge deal, but then it started acting weird. It was fading, and it seemed to be drifting off course. And then, by 2014, it just vanished, completely gone. So what happened? It turns out it was never a planet to begin with. What they had photographed was the immediate, expanding cloud of debris from two massive asteroids smashing into each other. A ghost image of a world that never was. And speaking of ghosts, let's go all the way back to that very first planet we talked about, the one with the 3 suns. Well, here's the most disturbing part. After its discovery was announced in 2005, another team of scientists tried to find it again, and they found absolutely nothing. There was no trace of it. It might not even exist. It might have been a ghost all along. But maybe the most profound cosmic nightmare isn't the violence, or the heat, or even the ghosts. Maybe it's the horror of total, absolute isolation. This is a rogue planet. Its name is PSJ318.5-22. The sun never rises here because there is no sun. There is no star to orbit. There is no day. There is no dawn.
Rogue planets are worlds that were likely kicked out of their home systems and are now destined to just drift forever in that cold, empty void between the stars. But here's the twist. This planet isn't a frozen ball of ice. It's actually a pretty young world, so it's still glowing with the intense heat left over from its creation. It's a burning furnace, covered in stormy clouds made of hot dust and molten iron. A world of eternal twilight, burning all alone in the dark.
We've seen worlds with 3 suns, planets with clouds made of quartz, and ghosts that literally vanish right before our eyes. If these are the kinds of bizarre, rule-breaking nightmares we've already managed to find in just our tiny corner of the galaxy, you have to wonder, what else is hiding out there in the dark?